I always imagined the day my daughter got married would be one of the happiest of my life. I pictured helping her choose her dress, standing by her side as she prepared for the biggest moment of her life, and feeling my heart swell with pride as she walked down the aisle. But reality had other plans. It started with a conversation over dinner, one that changed everything. David, my husband of 25 years, sat across from me, absent-mindedly scrolling through his phone. His fork scraped against his plate as he spoke, as if what he was about to say was of no real importance. "Oh, by the way, Marie said the wedding plans are coming along well." I smiled. "That's wonderful. I should call her and see if she needs help with anything." David hesitated. Then, without looking up, he added, "Actually, she's decided not to invite you." The words didn't register at first. I stared at him, waiting for some kind of clarification, a laugh, anything to prove I had misheard him. But he just kept scrolling. "What?" My voice came out too soft, too uncertain. David finally looked at me, his expression neutral. "She thought it would be better this way. Less tension. You know how things have been between you two." The room felt like it was closing in on me. "She's not inviting me to her own wedding. I'm her mother." David sighed. "Rose, don't make this a big deal. It's just a wedding." Just a wedding. I felt my hands shaking as I set my fork down. A lifetime of love, sacrifices, and late nights comforting Marie when she cried. Erased with a single sentence. I pushed my chair back and stood up. "I need some air." David didn't try to stop me. He just went back to his phone. I walked outside, the cold night air hitting my skin like a slap. My daughter didn't want me at her wedding. And my husband didn't seem to care. At that moment, I knew something inside me had shifted. And I wasn't sure I'd ever be the same again. The night air was sharp, cutting through the thin sweater I had thrown on before stepping outside. But the cold was nothing compared to the hollowness settling inside me. Marie, my only daughter, my little girl, didn't want me at her wedding. I wrapped my arms around myself, staring up at the dark sky, searching for some kind of answer. But all I found was silence. How had things come to this? Sure, Marie and I had our disagreements. What mother and daughter didn't? She always thought I was too controlling, too opinionated. And I thought she was too impulsive, too reckless. But I never imagined she would cut me out of the biggest day of her life. I turned back toward the house. David was still inside, probably sitting on the couch, pretending nothing had happened. He had dropped the news so casually, as if it didn't matter. As if I didn't matter. I swallowed the lump in my throat and walked inside. David glanced at me but said nothing. I stood in the doorway, my hands clenched at my sides. "You knew," I said quietly. He sighed, rubbing his temple. "Rose, please. You knew for how long?" David hesitated. "A few weeks." A few weeks. He had kept this from me for weeks, letting me believe everything was fine while my daughter planned a wedding I wasn't even invited to. I felt something inside me snap. "I see," I whispered. My voice was eerily calm, but inside I was screaming. "And you didn't think to tell me." "I didn't want to hurt you." I let out a bitter laugh. "Right. Because telling me at the last minute over dinner was so much kinder." David stood up, running a hand through his hair. "What did you want me to do, Rose?" "Force her to invite you. She made her choice. She's my daughter." I choked on the words, my throat burning with unshed tears. "And you were supposed to be on my side." David exhaled heavily, shaking his head. "There are no sides, Rose. She's an adult. If she doesn't want you there, you have to respect that." "Respect it." I turned away before he could see the tears spill over. I had spent my entire life putting my family first. Sacrificing, compromising, loving. And now, when I needed someone to stand beside me, I was alone. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and an aching heart. The house felt different, emptier, colder. I could hear David moving around in the kitchen, but I had no desire to face him. Instead, I reached for my phone. Marie's contact stared back at me. My fingers trembled as I pressed the call button. It rang. Once, twice. Then straight to voicemail. I tried again and again. Nothing. A lump formed in my throat as I stared at the screen. She was ignoring me. Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to let them fall. Fine. If she wouldn't answer, I would go to her. I grabbed my car keys and marched out the door. David didn't even ask where I was going. Marie's apartment complex was a short drive away, but my hands gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mind raced with everything I wanted to say. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I just wanted to understand. By the time I reached her building, my heart was pounding. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. I knew she was home. Her car was in the parking lot. My stomach twisted as I rang the doorbell. And then I heard it. Whispers. Movement. She was inside, avoiding me. My hands trembled as I stepped back. She wasn't just ignoring my calls, she was hiding from me. A deep pain settled in my chest, heavier than anything I had ever felt. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Marie wanted me gone from her life. And I had no idea why. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my hand hovering near the doorbell, my heart pounding in my chest. The whispers inside had stopped. The apartment had gone completely silent. She was in there, and she wasn't coming to the door. A cold wave of realization washed over me. My own daughter was avoiding me like an unwanted guest, like a stranger. I knocked one last time, softer now. Marie, I called, my voice trembling. Please, just talk to me. Nothing. Tears burned at the back of my eyes. I could feel them coming, but I refused to let them fall. Not here, not like this. I swallowed the lump in my throat and turned away, walking slowly back to my car. My hands felt numb as I gripped the steering wheel, but I didn't start the engine right away. Instead, I sat there, staring at her door. What had I done to make her shut me out like this? I replayed every argument, every disagreement, every mistake. But nothing felt big enough to justify this. A few minutes later, I finally drove away. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know if I would ever hear my daughter's voice again. David barely looked up when I walked back inside. He was sitting on the couch, watching TV, as if nothing had happened. As if my world hadn't just fallen apart. I stood in the doorway, staring at him. She ignored me, I said finally. He sighed, rubbing his temples. Rose, you need to stop. I blinked. Stop? Yes, you're obsessing over this. Obsessing. My voice rose, shaking with anger. David, our daughter just shut me out of her life, and you think I'm obsessing. He turned off the TV and stood up, facing me with a look of frustration. What do you want me to do, Rose? Force her to talk to you? She's an adult. She made a choice. I clenched my fists. And you're okay with that? No, I'm not okay with it. But I also know, Marie, if she's pushing you away, there's a reason. A reason. I shook my head, my breath coming faster. Then tell me what it is. Because I have no idea what I did wrong. David exhaled sharply. Maybe that's the problem, Rose. Something in his tone made me freeze. I stared at him, my heart pounding. What do you mean? He ran a hand through his hair, looking away. You always think you're right. You don't listen. You push too hard. His words hit me like a slap. I felt the room spin for a moment. I had expected him to comfort me, to reassure me. But instead, he was blaming me. Tears welled up in my eyes. You really think this is my fault? David sighed. I think Marie has her reasons, and instead of demanding answers, maybe you should take a step back and give her space. Space. That word felt like a knife to my chest. She had already erased me from her wedding. Now I was supposed to erase myself from her life? I turned away before he could see the tears spilling down my face. David didn't come after me. He just let me go. I barely slept that night. My mind kept replaying everything, Marie's silence, David's words, the empty feeling in my chest. By morning, I felt hollow. I reached for my phone out of habit, scrolling through old messages from Marie. The last time we had spoken was weeks ago. I had sent her a text about a new recipe I had tried. She had responded with a single word, nice. That was it. I hadn't even noticed the distance forming between us. My heart clenched as I typed another message. Me, Marie, please. I just want to understand. Can we talk? I hesitated before hitting send. A part of me feared she would ignore this too, but another part of me refused to let go. A minute passed, then 5, then 10. And then my phone buzzed. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the screen. Marie, Mom, please stop. Just 3 words. 3 words that shattered me. I read her message over and over again, my fingers trembling. Please stop. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even an explanation. It was a finality that chilled me to my core. I stared at the screen, debating what to do. Should I respond? Should I ask her why? Should I demand answers? Before I could decide, another message appeared. Marie, I just need space. Please respect that. My stomach twisted. Space. That word again. I wanted to argue, to tell her she was being unfair, to remind her of everything I had done for her. But instead, I did something I never thought I would do. I put the phone down. For the first time, I realized this wasn't a battle I could win by pushing harder. If Marie wanted space, I would give it to her. But deep inside, a new fear was creeping in. What if, by giving her space, I lost her forever? Days passed, then a week. Marie didn't call. She didn't text. The silence felt unbearable, like an invisible weight pressing down on my chest every single day. At first, I kept reaching for my phone, tempted to send another message. But David's words haunted me. You pushed too hard. So I forced myself to wait. I distracted myself with chores, with work, with anything that could keep my mind from wandering back to my daughter. But no matter what I did, I couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something was wrong. Not just between us, but with her. I knew my daughter, and something about this felt off. I just didn't know how to prove it. One evening, David came home late from work, tossing his keys on the kitchen counter with a sigh. He looked exhausted, but I didn't care. I needed to talk to him. I think something's wrong with Marie, I blurted out. David froze mid-step, then exhaled. Rose. No, listen, I said, stepping closer. This isn't just her being distant. I can feel it. Something isn't right. David rubbed his temples. She said she needs space. And what if she's lying? My voice cracked. What if she's in trouble? What if? She's not in trouble, he interrupted firmly. She's just figuring things out. I shook my head. You don't know that. Neither do you, he shot back. Frustration bubbled up inside me. He didn't understand. He wasn't listening. I'm going to find out what's going on, I said firmly. David sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Rose, don't. But I was already grabbing my purse. I wasn't going to wait for Marie to let me in. I was going to find the truth myself. I drove to Marie's apartment again, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't care if she was angry. I didn't care if she told me to leave. I needed to see her. This time, I didn't knock. I pounded on the door. Marie, open up, I called. No answer. I knocked harder. Marie, please. Still nothing. A sick feeling twisted in my stomach. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear any sound inside. But there was nothing. No music, no TV, no movement. Just silence. My chest tightened. I pulled out my phone and dialed her number. It rang once, twice. Then, to my shock, I heard the faint buzz of a phone from inside the apartment. My breath hitched. She was here. She was ignoring me. Or worse, something was wrong. My fingers shook as I reached for the doorknob, half expecting it to be locked. But to my surprise, it turned. The door wasn't locked. A wave of cold dread washed over me as I slowly pushed it open. And the moment I stepped inside, I knew something was very, very wrong. I stepped inside, my heart hammering against my ribs. The apartment was dark. Too dark. I fumbled for the light switch, my breath catching as the room flickered into view. Marie's living room was a mess. Blankets tossed on the couch, half-eaten food on the table, unopened mail scattered across the floor. And then I saw her, curled up in the corner, knees to her chest, eyes red and swollen. A bottle of pills lay tipped over beside her. My breath hitched. Marie, I rushed to her side, shaking her shoulders. Marie, wake up. She stirred, blinking sluggishly. Mom. Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. I pressed my hand to her cheek, relief flooding through me. She was alive. But barely. What did you do? My voice cracked. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't mean to. I didn't wait for an explanation. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Marie spent 3 days in the hospital. 3 days of IV drips, whispered apologies, and a weight in my chest that wouldn't lift. David sat beside me the entire time, his fingers laced with mine. Neither of us spoke much, but his presence grounded me. When Marie was finally stable, the truth came out. She had been struggling, more than she let on. The pressure of school, work, life, everything had become too much. And when we fought, when I pushed too hard, she felt like she had no one to turn to. The guilt crushed me. But guilt wouldn't fix this. So I did the only thing I could. "I'm here," I whispered to her one night, stroking her hair as she lay in the hospital bed. "No matter what, no matter how much space you need, I'll always be here." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Mom." I kissed her forehead. "We'll figure this out together." And for the first time in weeks, I felt hope. Marie wasn't lost. And neither was I. We just had to find our way back to each other. Together.